All right, so we are back and ready to dive into some NFL action.
Week 1 is in the books.
It is.
And there were some real surprises.
Yeah, everyone wants to talk about the big names, your Mahomes,
Right.
your Staffords.
Of course.
But we're all about going a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And we're really interested to use both the traditional stats
Right.
and those next-gen stats
Absolutely.
to sort of figure out who's really exceeding those early expectations.
Yeah, those hidden stories are always fascinating.
So let's jump right into it with quarterbacks. I mean,
Okay.
we said we weren't going to talk about those big names, but obviously they're putting up the numbers that they always do.
Right.
But were there any surprises in the top 10 passing yards
Oh, absolutely.
for you?
You see a guy like Baker Mayfield down there in Tampa Bay?
Okay.
Now he's quietly leading the league in passer rating.
Wow.
4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. It's a complete turnaround from what we saw last year.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
I will admit. I thought Baker Mayfield, we were kind of,
Past his prime,
writing him off maybe.
Yeah.
And yet here he is lighting it up week 1.
Yeah.
So what's behind this sudden surge? I mean, is this for real?
Well, it's week 1, so it's always tough to tell.
Right.
But sometimes a change of scenery, a new team, a new system can do wonders for a guy.
Sure.
And it looks like Tampa Bay, they've given him some weapons.
Okay.
But here's where I think it gets really interesting is when you look at some of those next-gen stats
Right.
for Mayfield, his aggressiveness percentage, which essentially measures how often is he throwing into tight coverage downfield,
Okay.
it's over 42%.
Wow.
One of the highest in the league.
Really?
So he's not shying away from those risky throws, even though so far he's playing pretty much mistake-free football.
So high risk, high reward.
Exactly. And right now it's paying off.
Yes.
That's the gamble.
So it'll be interesting to see if you can keep that up.
Huge question mark.
Now, you mentioned Tua down in Miami, putting up some quiet numbers.
Yeah.
I think our listeners are very curious about Tua.
Yeah, he had a good week.
How's he looking?
Over 338 passing yards.
Okay.
Right up there with some of the league leaders.
Wow.
Not always the flashiest quarterback, but playing with incredible efficiency right now in this new Miami offense.
What is it about this new system that seems to be clicking with him?
One thing that jumps out from the next-gen stats is his time to throw,
Okay.
which essentially measures how long is he holding on to the ball
Right.
before he releases it.
Yeah.
Tua is averaging 2.52 seconds,
Okay.
among the fastest in the league.
Wow.
And that suggests to me that this new system is designed to get the ball out of his hands quickly,
Makes sense.
allow him to make those quick reads,
Right.
and distribute it to all those playmakers they've got.
So 2 very different quarterbacks exceeding expectations in very different ways.
Right.
But what about the guys on the receiving end of some of those passes?
Yeah.
Any receivers catching your eye in this first week? When we think about receivers having big weeks, we often think about those like highlight reel catches.
Right.
But sometimes it's the less heralded players
Right.
who are putting up those quietly impressive numbers.
Absolutely. And that's why you got to look beyond just, the top receiving yardage totals.
Right.
And you see a name like Nico Collins in Houston.
Nico Collins, though, that's a name I have not heard in a minute.
I mean, he's always had potential.
Yeah.
But week 1, he kind of blew up.
Okay.
6 catches, 117 receiving yards, and a 55-yard touchdown.
Okay. A 55-yard touchdown. That'll get your attention.
Yeah.
But I know our listeners are all about those explosive plays. Is there more to his game, or is he just a one-trick pony?
Well, this is where I think the next-gen stats really, paint a picture here. Get this. Nico Collins was the fastest ball terrier in the entire NFL in week 1.
Wait, serious?
Faster than all the speedsters that you're thinking of.
Oh.
He hit an incredible 21.89 miles per hour on that 55-yard touchdown catch.
So defenses just have not figured out how to cover that kind of speed.
And it's not just that one play when we look at his target share air yards,
Okay.
which is also known as TAY percent.
Okay.
Essentially, it tells you what percentage of a team's intended air yards
Okay.
are going to a specific receiver
Right.
when they throw the ball.
Right.
His is over 50%.
Right.
So he is getting targeted on a huge chunk of those deep passes.
Right.
This isn't just a one-off.
So big, fast receiver. He's getting the targets. He's making the most of it.
It seems like it, yeah.
People sleeping on Nico Collins might regret it. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk running backs.
Okay?
I know our listeners are very eager to hear about some rookie running backs
Right.
making an impact early.
Yeah, there's a couple names I want to get to.
Okay?
2 rookies in particular
Okay.
with very different stories.
Okay.
Bijan Robinson in Atlanta and Bucky Irving up in New England.
Okay, well, let's start with Robinson.
Okay.
I mean, this is a guy who came in with so much hype,
Huge expectations, yeah.
How do you look in his debut?
Solid.
Okay.
68 yards on 18 carries.
Okay.
I mean, not a bad start by any means.
Right.
But not the kind of dominant, performance that some were maybe expecting or hoping for.
But I have a feeling the next-gen stats might tell a slightly different story.
That's the thing about, the traditional stats. Sometimes they don't tell the whole story.
Right.
His efficiency rating for week 1 was a remarkable 4.85.
Okay, that's got to be good, right?
That is incredibly high.
Okay.
Essentially what that means is he's gaining way more yards after contact
Okay.
than you'd typically expect.
Interesting.
He's breaking tackles. He is fighting for extra yards.
Right.
He's showing that toughness that made him such a highly touted prospect.
So even if those raw yardage totals aren't quite there yet,
Yeah.
it sounds like in terms of his running style,
Oh, yeah.
he's living up to the hype.
Yeah, you can see those flashes for sure.
Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
you mentioned Bucky Irving up in New England.
Not a high draft pick,
Right.
but quietly made some noise in week 1.
I feel like the Patriots always have one of these guys.
Right.
What stood out to you about his performance?
Only got 9 carries, but managed to rack up 62 yards.
Okay.
That's a pretty darn good average, almost 7 yards a carry, and he had a couple nice runs, including a 31-yarder that showed off some explosiveness.
So he's making the most of it.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, the Patriots' backfield, it's always crowded.
It is.
A lot of competition there.
Always a logjam there in New England.
What does that mean for his chances of getting more touches as we move forward?
That's the big question, right?
Right.
But if he keeps ripping off runs like that 31-yarder,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard to keep him off the field.
Good problem to have if you're Bill Belichick.
Right.
Too many talented running backs. It seems like we're already seeing some really interesting storylines developing after just 1 week.
Absolutely. And that's what's so fun about the beginning of the season,
Yeah.
Everything's wide open.
Everything's new.
You got Baker Mayfield defying the odds, leading the league in passer rating.
Who would have predicted that?
Exactly. And then you got a guy like Nico Collins coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Suddenly one of the most explosive playmakers in the league.
It really just goes to show you anything can happen.
Week to week.
Any given Sunday, as they say.
That's right. Anything can happen.
So what did we learn today?
I think the big takeaway is this is just a snapshot, a
Yeah.
glimpse of what these players are capable of.
Week 1.
The question is, can they sustain it?
Right.
Will these early surprises become the breakout stars of the season?
Or will new contenders emerge?
Exactly. Those are the questions for another deep dive.
That's right. Make sure you join us again next week as we break down even more stats, uncover even more of these unexpected stars. But until then, keep your eyes on those box scores because you never know who's going to emerge as the next big thing in the NFL.